We are going to talk about grouping shapes and putting holes in shapes on Tinkercad. So after I have a shape down on my work plane, I can put a hole in it by selecting one of these two shapes here. Now this box and this cylinder, they're both holes. And I can tell that they're holes because they're transparent. Anytime I put something down on my work plane and it's transparent, it's going to be a hole. But I can also turn any of these other shapes into holes as well. I put this cone down. Right now I see that cone's purple. Well, if I go to the hole option, that makes it a hole. So I can then create a hole with that shape. So any of the shapes that I use can be holes. These top two, the box and the cylinder, those are already holes. So I'm going to make a hole with a cylinder, and I'm going to use this cylinder here just to show you that you can use any shape you want. It doesn't have to be these two hole shapes up here. So I'm going to take that cylinder and click on the hole. That'll make it transparent. That shows me that it's going to be a hole, that I can make a hole with it. And once you make it into a hole, change the size to whatever size you want the hole to be. Maybe a little bit smaller than that. And then put the hole where you want it. Now at this point, that hole's not set. This rectangle and this cylinder are two separate shapes. I need to combine them. I need to combine these two shapes to make that hole stick, to make that hole work. So to combine these, I'm going to click and drag this dotted box around these two shapes. And when I let go, it highlights both of them. And at this point, I can go up here and select that icon that stands for grouping. When I click on it, that groups those two shapes. It combines them. So instead of two shapes, now I have one shape. And if I want to ungroup them, I click, and that will ungroup the shapes. So now my hole and my rectangle are separate. But I want to keep that hole there, so we'll group them together. So I have the hole. And let's say I want to make a hole that doesn't go the entire way through my shape. We'll make a square hole this time. So I'll bring the box out, set it down, and make sure that I turn it into a hole. Make it a little taller so it's easier to deal with. And I'll leave it the same dimensions for width and length. At this point, I don't want this hole to travel the entire way through my work plane. So what I need to do is I need to lift my hole up off the work plane. To do that, I can click on this little black triangle above the shape, and I can pick it up off the work plane. Now this number here lets me know how high it is off the work plane. Let's say I'll make it 20 millimeters off the work plane. And then I can take the hole and I can move it over here, and it's going to fit above the work plane. Or sorry, it's not going to go the entire way through the rectangle because it's above the work plane. And at this point, I can highlight both of these and group them, and that will make the hole stick. So I have this hole that I made that went the entire way through the shape, and then I have this hole that didn't go the entire way through the shape because I picked it up off of the work plane. Now any shape I can pick up off the work plane too. See this shape here too? I just use the black triangle above it, and I can move it up and down on the work plane. The thing you need to realize though is that if it's not sitting directly on the work plane, if it's underneath the work plane, whatever's underneath the work plane will not print. If it is above the work plane, floating in midair, it will not print either because the 3D printer needs to print on a surface. So the shape will need to be directly on the work plane in order to print properly.